Do you know why Giyu is quiet? It is because he's disconnected from others, from himself, and even from the reality. And in this disconnection lies a quiet battle with existential depression. But to understand Giyu, we need to go beyond the sword and into the mind. Gil doesn't live in the present, he lives in the shadow of the past. In his eyes, he shouldn't be here. Sabitu should. Because from his point of view, Sabitu was stronger, braver, and Sabitu died. So Gil locked himself away emotionally, mentally, because how do you live with yourself when you believe your existence came at the cost of someone better? The philosopher Sartre once wrote, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." But what if a man doesn't believe he has the right to make anything of himself? He doesn't feel joy or pride because he doesn't think he deserves them. His disconnection from himself is a punishment, a silent sentence passed by his own guilt. Geo avoids others not because he dislikes them, but because he believes he has no place among them. He rejects the community that values him because he's already rejected himself. The philosopher Camus tells us that there is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Not always literal, but the question of whether life has meaning, whether to continue or disappear quietly into the background. Geo doesn't take his life, but he stops living. He becomes a function, a sword, not a person. Gyu fights demons, he follows orders, he protects, but there are acts of duty, not belief, because he is no longer lives in the reality of the present. He's frozen in the past, in guilt, in a false truth. I am not supposed to be alive. So he doesn't build connections, he doesn't laugh, and more importantly, he doesn't feel. And then comes Tanjiro, our protagonist. Tanjiro is kind, determined, compassionate, who reminds Geyo of himself, or perhaps who Geyo could have been if he didn't sophisticated himself in grief. And for the first time, he fights not out of duty, but out of care, but out of value, out of the desire for Tanjiro to live, to survive, to not suffer what he suffered. That becomes his purpose. And suddenly the weight of existing becomes just a little bit lighter. Sartre said freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. So Gio is broken by the past, but now he chooses to act not because he believes in himself, but because he believes in Tanjiro. And that belief reconnects him. You begin to see tiny cracks in Gio's armor, a softened glance, a rare word of encouragement, a moment of shared silence that isn't cold but safe. Gio is not healed, but he's changing. Not because someone told him to, but because someone touched a part of him he thought had died. He finds meaning in protecting that light, and in doing so, he begins to step back into his own. Gio is a man who once lost his reason to live and found it again in someone else's survival or in someone else's story. And not every healing is loud. Sometimes it begins in silence when someone reaches through the fog and reminds you that you're still here and that maybe, just maybe, you still matter.